Tim, great to have you here. Great to have all of you with us as we will field some of your questions. And when I see the Twins and Cardinals, I always think back to 1987, 30 years ago this fall. Been a long time.
I was going to say, Tom, it's ironic that the Twins play the Cardinals tomorrow down in Grapefruit League action, and certainly I remember a series that we had against the Cardinals. It was some time ago. Yes, my memory still serves me fairly well at times, and I do remember that series that we had against the St. Louis Cardinals back in 1987, the series that obviously we ended up winning. We're going to celebrate that series win sometime this summer, so we're going to look forward to that, Tom.
All right, questions rolling in already. Tom Deerberger is asking about Max Kepler and your expectations of the outfielder this year.
Max Kepler, obviously we've talked about the fact that Max Kepler has a really, really high upside. The thing about Max Kepler that I like the most, and we would talk about the other analysts as well, especially Roy Smalley, who talks about hitting a lot. And Max Kepler has a swing plane that you just don't teach to too many kids. He certainly gets up into the batter's box and he attacks the baseball from the top. When he swings the bat, he goes down on the baseball. And when he swings the bat the way he's capable of, he puts backspin. He imparts backspin on the baseball. And stood by the batting cage and watched him take batting practice. And he hits some line drives that you think are going to be base hits or maybe even doubles into the gap that end up bouncing off the outfield wall. So certainly has the potential to be able to swing the bat very, very well and hit the ball with some power. But also I expect that Max Kepler, when he gets more experience in this league, when his at-bat numbers get higher, that his batting average is going to follow right along with that. He's going to be a fun one to watch. I like watching Max Kepler play the game of baseball.
Daniel has asked about Brian Dozier, 42 home runs last year. His question, will Dozier be the man again this year?
Will he be the man? Certainly Brian Dozier is a guy in the Minnesota Twins clubhouse that some of the other guys are looking forward to from a leadership capacity. Brian Dozier has done a really nice job of trying, and it's a very difficult position to meld into that leadership role. It's not one that there are a lot of guys that have those outstanding leadership qualities. The Minnesota Twins in 2015 probably saw one of the last of those guys in Torrey Hunter, but Brian Dozier certainly is capable of having another banner year. I'm not expecting Brian Dozier to hit another 42 home runs. Like to see his RBI numbers back up where they were in 2016. He had 99 RBIs. His batting average was about 20 points higher than his career batting average. So Brian Dozier understands that to be a professional player means that you are learning not just every year, not just every month or week, but every day that you go out onto the baseball field, you're going to learn something. Brian Dozier continues to be a better Major League player year after year.
Cody, we thank you for your question. Is this a breakout year ahead for Byron Buxton? Boy, what we saw in September last year certainly would indicate that.
Yes, Byron Buxton has a skill set that the very, very few people have. He can do it all. And not to mention the fact that we've seen him in the outfield. We've seen him chase down baseballs in the outfield. We've seen what he can do on the base paths and the speed that he runs the bases, which I remember watching last summer in a series down in Tampa where Byron Buxton laid down a sacrifice bunt just to move the runner from first to second. And he beat the play at first. And so he's got a skill set that is unlike any other that we've maybe seen come along Major League Baseball in a long time. But you have to be able to put it all together to be a complete baseball player. That means playing defense. That means throwing to the cutoff man, throwing to the right base. That means having good at-bats and not giving away some of those at-bats, especially the latter part of games, even the early part of game. It remains to be seen whether Byron's going to be utilized in the leadoff position or maybe somewhere down in the order, maybe even ninth in the order. But we know he has an unbelievable skill set.
Like most of us, David is wondering about the starting rotation for the Twins this year, the first five for Minnesota. And certainly the news of Trevor May was not good. He was hoping to be the fifth starter. What are your thoughts on the starting five?
Well, whoever the starting five are, they have to pitch better. They're going to have to put some pressure on themselves to figure out a way to pitch deeper into the ball game. Santana, Hector Santiago, Kyle Gibson. These guys are the guys that the Twins starters are. They're going to be in the starting rotation. It's going to be their job to take that baseball and to pitch deep into the ball games. You don't want, Paul Molitor does not want to get his bullpen going in the 4th or the 5th inning. He wants to give these guys an opportunity to pitch deeper into the ball games. That way, you don't put as much pressure on your bullpen. That way, you can get that bullpen into a little bit more of a rhythm, but it's going to be vital for these guys to pitch deeper into the ball games. And to do that, they're going to have to depend upon their defense. And we talked about defense in our preview show and the fact that those outfielders that right now are penciled in to play outfield and the infielders that are penciled in to play infield on April 3rd when the Twins open up at home here at Target Field, those guys have to play better defense to help that starting pitching staff. Anytime you give the other team extra outs, they give them the opportunity to extend innings, you're going to be in big trouble. They have to eliminate that as much as possible.
Ryan continues with the pitching theme. He's wondering, since the Twins did not really add a starter, whether we can expect the team to improve.
Yeah, you can expect the team to improve. And, hope springs eternal. And anytime you have an opportunity to go down to spring training and work some things out, talk about some things that didn't go well last year, give yourself an opportunity to talk about some things that did go well, because there were some positives for that ball club last year in lieu of the fact that they lost as many ball games as they did. Again, hope springs eternal. And you want the opportunity to go out on April 3rd, have a good start to the season, get your fan base back behind you, give those people something that they can trust you with. Go out and play the kind of baseball that you're capable of playing. Don't put some pressure on yourself from a pitching standpoint, and also to make the plays that you're supposed to make, play the game the way that you're supposed to play it, play a team game of baseball. At times during the course of last year, and it's understandable, things kind of get away from you a little bit and you start playing for yourself. But when you play team baseball and you're dependent upon the guys that are next to you, the guys that you stand shoulder to shoulder with, then you can play some team baseball. Then you can get those people that are sitting in those seats in the stadium behind you. It can be a lot of fun.
We appreciate all of your questions. Brian asking about Miguel Sano, your expectations for the big man this year.
So again, when you talk about guys that Miguel Sano, Byron Buxton, you're talking about guys who have an upside. Miguel Sano is another one of those guys. He has power. And to understand that, though, you have to understand exactly what it means to be able to stay on the baseball. We saw earlier in spring training, Miguel Sano struck out 11 out of 12 times, and we know that that's not going to cut it. That's not going to work for Miguel Sano, nor for the Twins, whatever spot in the order that he hits. He has to be able to learn to stay on the baseball. He hit a ball into the right center field gap in the game the other day. It was nice to see him play or hit that baseball the other way. If he does that, that will make the pitcher that stands out on the mound say, well, I'm going to have to try to come inside on this guy, and that'll open up his opportunity to pull the baseball and hit it 9 miles the other way. But he has to stay on the baseball first. Defensively, there's some question marks with Miguel Sano at third base. We've seen him make some unbelievable plays. Going to his right, backhanding the ball, throwing a bullet across the diamond, also coming in on a swinging bunt, making the play like he's a 10-year veteran. But then there are also some other plays that you would expect your third baseman to make that didn't get made. So there's a little bit of a question mark over there. We're going to keep an eye on Miguel as he continues to play third base. We know he's happy to be back in the infield. Let's see how happy he is.
Tim Anthony is wondering more about Sano. Can he play third base for an entire season? And on occasion, when he does move into the DH area, who spells him with Trevor Plouffe no longer a part of this organization?
Well, certainly there are guys that are going to be capable of. Eduardo Escobar looks to be a utility infielder. How the rest of the bench shapes up for Paul Molitor remains to be seen. But Miguel Sano, if he stays healthy, and we had a little bit of an issue with his hamstring last year, but if he stays healthy, he's capable of playing, even though he's a big man, 155, 157 games during the course of the 2017 season. Now, whether he can do that defensively remains to be seen. We haven't seen Miguel Sano play very many games over at third base. And again, there were times when he made some spectacular plays. There were times when he booted some balls and even missed pop-ups. And that's the kind of thing that extends inning. That's no help to your starting pitching staff or even your relief corps. You've got to make the plays that you're supposed to make and make sure that you give yourself an opportunity to make those plays. And it takes a lot of work on a daily basis to go out there. And maybe sometimes Miguel's going to have to take it upon himself to get that extra work in.
Ann wants to shift gears and talk about Byung Ho Park. Do you think he'll be part of the 40-man roster this year?
He's not on the 40-man roster as of right now. He got taken off the roster with an invite to spring training. He's having a nice spring this year. And so there again, those are some of the decisions, difficult decisions that the manager and the new front office staff, Derek Falvey and Thad Levine, are going to have to make with regards to personnel. Where does Byung-ho Park fit into this system? Even though he's not on the 40-man roster, it's going to take a roster move to bring him back on if he makes this ball club. And so those are tough decisions from a player standpoint. All the guys that are in spring training right now, it's your job to make that manager and that front office personnel decisions as tough as possible. You don't make those decisions as a player. What you do as a player is you go out there and play to the best of your ability and make those decisions, and those decision makers have a heck of a time trying to figure out what they're going to do with you.
We move on. Derek questioning whether or not Ryan Vogelsong, the 39-year-old pitcher, might be the Twins' fifth starter this year, Tim.
He has an opportunity, certainly with Trevor May undergoing a season or experiencing a season-ending injury. He's going to have to possibly, I guess, have some surgery and go through an extensive rehabilitative process. That opens up a spot for somebody else. And so if that's going to be Ryan Vogelsong, it's going to be up to him to decide when he goes out to the mound to take advantage of that opportunity. Certainly a guy like Tyler Duffy wants to remain in the mix as well. He's had some starts for the Minnesota Twins. He wants to be back at the major league level. He doesn't want to be in AAA. And so, and those are some of the questions that are going to come up to the manager and to the front office personnel is, if they're even, do you go with the guy with a little more experience, or do you go with the guy that's been in the Twins uniform so far? Do you keep some of the guys down to continue to get better at the AAA level, or do you get rid of some of the experienced guys that you gave them an opportunity, they didn't quite meet the expectations, so you move those guys along and you bring your young kids back up? Those are tough decisions that the new front office personnel are going to have to make come April 1st or 2nd.
Derek continues on wondering, obviously a big Twins fan, about Jose Barrios, one of the young pitching prospects that so much was expected of last year, did not come through the way the Twins had hoped, but this is a young man with a great future.
Well, he's got an upside as well. This young man is a very, very good pitcher. What he has to understand is how to pitch at the major league level. I remember doing a game last September against the Kansas City Royals, the third hitter, Eric Hosmer. And Jose Barrios threw strike one. It was a four-seam fastball, knee-high on the inside corner, and at about 94, 95 miles per hour. I thought it was one of the most impressive pitches that Jose Barrios threw all of last year. The bad side of it is that to Eric Hosmer, the count went to 3-1 before you could bat an eye. And so to get ahead was an awesome thing for Jose Barrios to experience right there, but then to fall behind in the next three pitches to a 3-1 count is not what you want from your young pitcher. You want him to continue to attack, to continue to put that hitter on the defensive. Before you knew it, Eric Hosmer was back in the driver's seat, and certainly it was a learning experience, because every time you face a batter at the major league level, it's a learning experience, and that certainly was a learning experience for Jose Barrios, one that you'd like to see him back up with that 94-mile-an-hour knee-high four-seam fastball. I'd like to see about 50 or 60 of those a day.
Seth is wondering, last year, Max Kepler, one of the surprise players for this Twins team, Seth's wondering who might fill that role as a surprise this year for the Twins.
It's hard to say. There are so many guys in spring training. It's kind of amusing, I guess it were, to me when I turn on the Twins broadcast, and we're into the number 7 by late in the game. We're into the number 70s. We're into the number 80s. I don't know if they got any guys that are wearing 90 or plus numbers on the back of their jerseys down in spring training, but you never know what's going to happen. Spring training is an opportunity for somebody to come along and showcase their talent. Certainly, Derek Falvey and Thad Levine are going to keep a close eye on their 40-man roster. Obviously, you have a number of guys in camp, and I think we're going to start to see some cuts rounding out pretty soon. Today's an off day. Tomorrow they play the Cardinals, but at any point in time, we're going to start seeing some cuts, especially when some of the guys start coming back from the World Baseball Classic as some of those teams start falling off. And, you never know who you're going to see. Maybe some of the veteran guys are probably having a better opportunity. Stubbs and J.B. Shuck may have a better opportunity than some of the younger guys come along. But we'll see how that plays out.
Thad and Derek, a nice move early on to have Torrey Hunter, along with Michael Kadire and LaTroy Hawkins, return to this team and certainly help some of the young players. Our next question is about their impact on that young group.
It can be very, very positive. When you talk about those three guys, Michael Kadire, LaTroy Hawkins, and Torrey Hunter, you're talking three guys that are not that far removed from Major League uniforms. And so if you're a Major League player right now, if you're a Byron Buxton, if you're a Miguel Sano, if you're a young pitcher in the Twins organization, you've seen LaTroy Hawkins pitch. You've watched Michael Kadire play baseball at the Major League level, and certainly not only have you watched Torrey Hunter at the Major League level, but you have also maybe have been a teammate of Torrey, so there's some relativity there. Most of the guys on the Twins 25-man roster right now, probably all of them, have never seen Paul Molitor play the game of baseball. And I got an opportunity to watch Paul Molitor play the game of baseball, and he played the game of baseball the way it was supposed to be played. But none of the guys on his team ever got to see him play. So there's not that kind of a knowledge. There's not that kind of relativity with being able to make a connection, but they can certainly make a connection with those three guys. I think that was a really smart move by the new Twins front office personnel to bring those three guys, put them in uniform in spring training, and to pass along some of the things that hopefully they were able to pass along. When you talk about Torrey Hunter, who was a mentor, or I should say Kirby Puckett.
Right.
And today is Kirby Puckett's birthday, and certainly I think about Kirby on a daily basis, and I'm reminded of why I wear a World Series ring on a daily basis. And so we'll celebrate Kirby's birthday today, but we'll also talk about what he did for Torrey when he was a player. You can bet that Torrey understands that when he's talking to a young guy like Byron Buxton.
Tim, we thank you for your question. We move on to Brian, who is wondering, and this is a difficult one, what's the one key for the Twins to return to the playoffs? Yeah, one might be tough, but
certainly the one key is you have to stay healthy. And when you have a season that's going to be 162 games over 184 days, you've got to figure out a way to stay healthy. Certainly the Twins have already been bit by the injury bug, and the fact that Trevor May went down with an injury that he's going to be out for the season. You've got to eliminate those kind of injuries. You've got to keep your players on the field. You've got to keep your players healthy, and you've got to keep them going on a daily basis. It's a grind. It's a tough schedule. And so the more that you can keep your guys on the field, the better opportunity you have of keeping somewhat of a consistent lineup out there. You have an opportunity to keep your starting rotation intact. You have an opportunity to keep your bullpen fresh at the end of ball games. And if you can do that, then you can be competitive. As soon as you start sustaining some injuries and you have some guys go down, that just makes things a little bit tougher as you go along. So first of all, staying healthy. We know, when we talked in our preview show about the fact that you've got to be able to pitch and you've got to be able to play defense. Those are probably going to be the top three keys for this ball club.
We thank you all for your questions. A reminder that tomorrow here on Fox Sports North, we've got the Minnesota Twins spring training game against the Cardinals at noon. And immediately following that game, Tim and I with the debut of our 2017 Twins season preview. Thanks for watching Inside the Game, presented by the Minnesota Lottery.